According to the National Center for Drug Abuse, over 165 million Americans ages 12 and up are currently abusing drugs or alcohol. Of those 165 million Americans, there is a mom, dad, sister, brother, wife, husband, son, daughter, or grandparent praying and pleading that they would stop. Addiction is a subject most people don't like to talk about and is kept behind closed doors. But the Finding Hope podcast will bring light to the subject and give families that are living in shame, guilt, hopelessness, fear, worry, and anger tools and education to find strength, peace, happiness, joy, and hope. Hello, I'm Amy LaRue, Finding Hope Coordinator for Hope is Alive Ministries and your host for this Finding Hope podcast. At Hope is Alive, our mission is to radically change the lives of drug addicts, alcoholics, and those who love them. We do this through our intentional next-level sober living homes and faith-based support groups for the loved ones of addicts called Finding Hope. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I want to ask if you would be willing to donate to help us spread hope in 2024. Our end of the year giving campaign will go towards our book drive and give you the opportunity to provide our Finding Hope book to a new member that walks through the doors of Finding Hope, as well as pave the way for new meetings to begin and continued ongoing support for current meetings. If you have been impacted by the Finding Hope book or a meeting, I would encourage you to give to this year's Finding Hope Book Drive campaign. We will put a link in the show notes today. But today, I have not just one, but two very special guests joining me. We have Ms. Rhonda Kemp from Derby, Kansas, and Tara Winter from Jacksonville, North Carolina. Welcome, Rhonda and Tara. Rhonda, I met you probably about 3 to 4 years ago, and then I quickly learned we had a connection beyond this ministry. You actually live in Derby, Kansas, which is my hometown, so I always love when I can find people in Derby. You don't hear that very often. And then later found out, I was like, that last name sounds familiar. And later I learned that your stepdaughter is Jenna, and I had her on the podcast not too long ago, and she talked about how you played a pivotal role in her getting into our Hope is Alive program and into recovery. So thank you so much for that. And then Tara, we connected probably a little bit over a year ago at one of our Hope After Loss retreats. So how are you ladies doing? Rhonda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm just glad to be on your podcast, but I'm feeling good and had our Christmas party last night for Finding Hope. So we're doing well here in Derby.
Well, great. And what about you, Tara? How's North Carolina?
It's good. I'm doing the best I can. I'm still pretty fresh into my loss. So this is our second Christmas without my son Tyler. So
well, we'll get into your stories here and let people know how you got connected and how you are getting through these times. So Rhonda, let's start with you. Will you tell our listeners a little bit about you and how you got connected to this ministry?
I lost my daughter, Lacey. She was 30 years old and she died a little over 9 years ago to an opioid overdose. And it was devastating, of course, and still is. She struggled in her mid-20s until, she passed with addiction. She was introduced to opioids at 17 after 2 knee surgeries in high school. And I think that imprinted there in her brain. And then later in life, she used those drugs. And when she died, she had gone to a doctor for Klonopin to sleep. She was having trouble sleeping and having some medical issues from the addiction and the opioids and the wear and tear on her body. So she actually had kidney stones. And the day before she passed, I was with her in the hospital, and she went home with Percocet and prescriptions from two other doctors that I didn't know about. And that evening, she took too many with the Klonopin and passed away. So the next morning, I got the call and went to her apartment. And the part of the story that is important to me now, after all these years, to tell, as I was standing in the grass waiting to get into her apartment in her yard, I heard very clearly from God that His words were, "Be in agreement with me." And I had never heard that before. And those words I knew came directly from Him for me to be able to cope with having to give her up. And it stuck with me, the "Be in agreement with me." That was Him telling me He was there with me. I wasn't going to go through this alone. And like any parent knows, losing a child, there's just really nothing worse that you can experience. And she was my best friend. She was a great daughter. She was a wonderful sister, and just she can't be replaced. So the loss is horrific. And but those words, they gave me hope. They got me through every minute. I knew she was with God, and I knew she was safe and happy. And it took a long time, like Tara said. The years go by, and it's just inch by inch that you struggle, and the pain is real. It's physical, it's spiritual, it's mental. um, it took me a long time too, but luckily God was always there, and I had to just get very close to Him, crawl up in His lap, in a sort of sense, to wake up and figure out how I was going to get through to the next day. So about 4 years into my grief, I did it by myself. I didn't have any friends to talk to about it. I mean, I have a wonderful husband and family, but it's different when you have someone like Tara to talk to about what this is like for especially a mom or a dad. And I was invited to go to a parents helping parents meeting through a friend, and it was the first meeting I'd ever been to. And I sat down, and Chris Darrow was right beside me, and her husband Mike. So after the meeting, she came out to my car, and we just connected. She was pretty fresh in her loss of her daughter Lexi, and I was more of a veteran, so I kind of helped her that night, just kind of dealing with what she was feeling. And we've been close, dear friends ever since. And that's probably been 4 years ago. So she introduced me to Hope is Alive, Finding Hope. And I've just gained so many wonderful friends from it. And God told me I'd have a purpose in Lacey's loss, because I didn't want her life to be meaningless. I wanted I wanted to do something that would honor her. And the "Be in agreement with me" was, I think, that message that there's going to be a purpose for you. And when you're crushed in it, you can understand. You can be that important person for someone else, even if it's just listening to their story and letting them talk. And so Hope is Alive has given me a lot of direction, and I'm very grateful for it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing that and your transparency and all of that. And I love that you said, "Be in agreement with me. I can crawl up in God's lap." How many times do we just need to do that and just let Him comfort us in no matter what we're going through, and to give Him the opportunity to do that? So thank you for sharing that. And Tara, how did you get connected to our ministry?
Well, I got connected because I lost my son, Tyler. He was 26. Um, August 18th. He left this world the 17th, but I found out on the 18th, 2022. And I had actually just gone to a Finding Hope meeting the week before, just found out about it. And I had only gone to one meeting, and then we lost him the next week. And I reached out to the Finding Hope leaders and let them know that I would not be coming anymore because I no longer had an addict that was alive. And that's when they let me know about Hope After Loss. And it just happened to be that you guys were doing a retreat in October. And I really wasn't sure whether, I should come or not. I wasn't sure if it was too soon. But really, from the get-go, like, I just knew I needed all the help I could get. And so I just felt like God was like a gift from him of an opportunity to get help. And so I did it. So my husband and I flew out from North Carolina, and I was so glad that I did.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that stood out to me about you is the bravery of I just lost my son. I just got connected to this. I'm going to fly all the way from North Carolina to Tulsa, Oklahoma. You may have never even heard of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And but there's something you knew that you needed to get connected to. And I think that's what's special about these community. Rhonda, you mentioned it a little bit about connecting with Chris, and being able to have that common. And that's what we talk about, like that community understanding, other parents have lost children, but losing a child from the impact of addiction is different. We hear about the stigma that addiction brings and all of that. And I've heard, it's, people don't understand. They judge my child. They judge this person that they had a choice. But as you guys know, and a lot of our listeners, like this is a disease, and this disease, got them. And so the grieving is a little bit different. But we also know that there's so much more than their disease. That, Rhonda, you talked about being the best friend. And Tara, something that stood out the very first time I saw a picture of Tyler is his smile. Like, just that smile, it really just stood out to me in all of that. And so you guys connected in 2022 at our retreat. And, from there, you guys formed a friendship. Rhonda's in Kansas, Tara's in North Carolina. And so you guys just connected and are still connected. And I love that. And Rhonda, you talked about you knew when God gave you those words, be in agreement with me, that there's going to be a purpose. And here you are in your purpose. And you're leading not only Hope After Loss group there in Kansas and on Zoom. So if you're listening and you know someone or need to get connected, she leads one on Zoom. You don't have to be in person. And also a Finding Hope group there in Derby. And so you're using it. And then Tara has listened to God's calling as well and now leads our first Hope After Loss group in North Carolina. And what an incredible gift it is to those communities for you guys listening to God and being obedient to his purpose through all of this. So I would love for you guys both to kind of discuss gratitude as it relates to your grief journey. Sometimes, you think, people might think on the outside, like, how can you be grateful? How through all of this? But I want you guys to kind of just talk through it. We'll start with Rhonda. And so Rhonda, what can you talk about a little bit about gratitude through your grief journey?
It was at a Finding Hope retreat. I guess it would be just 2 years ago that I really started feeling like I could be grateful. And I was feeling it. A lot of people say, oh, we're so lucky we have this and we're so grateful. And I didn't feel it. I didn't feel happy that I was living my life without my daughter. But God really put on my heart that at least I had her. She was so important in my life, and I had her at a time I needed to change my life, and she kind of rescued me, really, as being my first child. And I just felt like, what if I'd have never had her, and what if I'd have never experienced 30 years of being her mom, and what a wonderful thing that was. And I started feeling grateful, and that just started healing me in a different way. And so I think not everybody's going to feel that way, and it's going to come, whenever it comes, because our journeys are different. But I just like to ask people if they have something to be grateful for, and get that thought in their mind, because I also have two sons and a husband, and I have have other things to be grateful for. But it's just important. It's an important piece of healing.
What about you, Tara? When was one of the first times after losing Tyler that you were able to experience feeling of deep gratitude?
Really, the first day. We literally just moved because we're military, and we just got our house, signed papers on the 17th to move in this house, and the movers were coming on the 18th. That's when I got the news at 5 o'clock in the morning, and movers were pulling up at my house at 8 o'clock in the morning to drop all our stuff off. And a church that we went to in Virginia Beach, some of my friends from there, I called and told them, and they drove up that same day. One had lost her son about 15 years ago, and another was a military wife and mom, and they came, and one ministered to me, and the other one was just unpacking all our stuff and putting it up. And I just knew, like, right there that God was not, that he was in it, and he was with us in it, and he's gone and paved a way before us. And just like everything lined up, like, and then someone told me about a grief share group, and I looked one up, and there was one that was starting the following week, 15 minutes from our house. And we didn't have a church family. We just moved here, and we got connected in that, and no one could believe we were going to grief share group after it was 13 days was my first meeting. But I just knew I needed all the help I could get. I needed God. And like Rhonda said, it was like I picture myself as like a 2-year-old just grabbing hold of his leg and holding on, just crying and not wanting to let go because I was so afraid. I didn't want to lose my faith. I wanted to just hold on to him for everything. And he was just providing. And same with the Hope After Loss retreat. I just felt like it was another thing. And when we went, I I cried, not tears of sadness, but tears of joy because even though the Grief Share group is really good and I really think it's a really good program, it is different when you lose someone to addiction. There's just a whole different, especially if you went down this addiction road. I mean, we were on this addiction road with my son for 12 years, an emotional roller coaster. But I found gratitude in that too, because Tyler, like, he was my first. He saved me too. I was an addict as well. And he saved me to be a better person. And then he saved me again with his addiction, because when he started going down that road of addiction is when I found God. And it made me lean into him those 12 years of just really leaning into getting to know him. And because I had that strong foundation, when he took him home, I was able to stand firm on that. And so I was very grateful for all of it, because I wouldn't know God and I wouldn't have the foundation and the people that he has just surrounded me with. Because the Hope After Loss retreat is just like, it's finally like I saw hope. That's when I first found hope, is at the Hope After Loss retreat, because there are so many other people who got it, who've been there, who are in different seasons than I am, and I could see a light, you know? And so I was just very grateful for all that.
That's so good. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just no matter where we are going through in life, whether it's grief, maybe it's our loved one is maybe out there actively using, or it might be something else. I heard something the other day on the radio. We don't know what everyone's carrying, right? Everyone, you go into the store or whatever, and we don't know what they're carrying. But for our own healing, we can start with that gratitude, looking to see, what are we grateful for? What has God done? Looking back at, Tara, you're talking about, like, through his addiction, you found that relationship with God. Like, wow. Nobody would ever ask for someone to be an addict or an alcoholic, but you found that with God. You found God through that. So thank you.
I was going to say, like, Tyler always felt so much guilt and shame for his addiction and always felt bad of what it caused me. But I told him that it was because of him and his addiction is what brought me to know Jesus, and how, I have my faith in God because of him. And he was just, that he was relieved to hear that.
Yeah. And I think that's something else to remind listeners. take the opportunity to share those things with your loved ones. Like, don't hold it inside, but share that with them, because I'm sure, like you said, a lot of them carry that shame and stuff and that guilt, but you sharing that probably gave him hope as well. So,
And some peace.
yeah, absolutely. So, how has gratitude changed your guys' grief journeys, if at all?
With me, you're not going to feel the same all the time. You're going to have highs and lows and highs and lows, and hour by hour it can change in grief. But like Tara said, when you're dealing with a loss of addiction or overdose, and then people are so uncomfortable with that subject, and then they're uncomfortable, coming up to you when you're hurting and knowing what to say, because just don't deal well with loss, and I don't think we know what to do. So you end up very isolated, and waking up with a purpose. And one of the things I got out of our retreat 2 years ago with Hope After Loss was Denise spoke, and she said, you have to get up, dress up, and show up. And that just, I was not doing that. I was not getting up and dressing up and showing up. I was dragging myself around. And if I got out of the house by 2 o'clock, it was like a victory lap for me. But God does not make us to be isolated. He doesn't create us to just hide away and be sad and wallow. And you're going to have to do that, but you also need to let God use your pain. And I don't know who wrote it, but I just read something about, your calling is going to crush you. And if you're called to minister to the brokenhearted, you're going to have to feel the brokenheartedness. And if that's your ministry and you don't have that experience, then you're not going to be very effective. So you take away things from this. It's the most horrible loss you can experience, but you also, there's some kind of a gift in it. It's like, it's surprising almost after several years of where I've been. You have this whole revelation that God is mending you and bringing you to a place that he's been trying to get you to maybe for a long time. But because you're paying attention and you're holding his hand and you're depending on him for every step, you start going forward and see him really clearly who he is. And you don't waste as much time. You lose a child, you realize you've wasted a lot of time. There's a lot of things you should have said, done. Uh, you just don't want to waste any more time. So there's a takeaway from the loss, and that's something you can always be grateful for, that you're evolving.
When you're having a hard day, what is the best way for you guys to redirect your thought pattern as well as your mood?
For me, uh, sometimes I let myself be in it. I think it's an opportunity to go through the pictures, go through, things that are hard, and let yourself feel it. I don't think we should always just diminish it. Because the only way to really work through it is to work through it. So I allow myself to have a moment, and then I will either get in his word, listen to worship music, because that really truly always I'm telling you, you can't, I mean, you can cry in worship, but they'll turn to tears of joy because of just how, great he truly is and just how much he loves us. And I also like to go outside for walks and just get outside with the sun and the fresh air and nature just always changes my mood.
Absolutely. Yeah, same with me. I had to be outside, being in nature. When Lacey passed in August, I was outside all the time, just kind of sinking into the ground. It felt like that was where I was supposed to be. And God just shows up, and it's amazing, really, how much He is there for us. And He's always doing that, but we don't hear it and see it and feel it until we are desperate to. And in my experience, um, I think music is a big part of it too, and getting outside of your own head. If you stay in your own thoughts, it can be very destructive. So, because I know with myself and other people I've talked to, there's a lot of guilt when your child passes away. You feel like you did it, you caused it. You know, you could have saved them, you should have saved them, and if you stay in that thought pattern, it's very, very hard to move forward. So, getting out of your own head, helping other people, just trying to find some peace through meditation, yoga. You know, I do yoga. I try to exercise, take walks. There's different tools for for that, and I think Tara's kind of covered a lot of the same things I do.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. And so, how, as we're approaching Christmas, not too far from now, how do you honor your loved ones? So, how do you honor Lacey and how do you honor Tyler through the Christmas season?
Honoring Tyler, we do an angel tree. We'll adopt somebody, a family or a child in his name. And then this year, I'm honoring him by celebrating Christmas. I couldn't do it last year. I just didn't have it in me. It was only 4 months, and I just couldn't even. And Christmas was his absolute favorite. He loved everything about it. And even though it's still hard, um, I have a 17-year-old who's still in the home and he wants Christmas and I want him to have Christmas and I want to still make memories. And because, like Rhonda said, time is short and it's not guaranteed. And so I don't want to miss any opportunity to live life. And so that's what we're doing.
You can see the tree behind me is the Lacey tree. I set that up the first Christmas that she was gone, and I asked all of her friends to send ornaments and her favorite movies, her favorite TV shows. She loved Friends, so we have all the Friends ornaments on there, and we just add to it, you know, as we find things that remind us of her. So that's our Lacey tree, and we try to have fun because she was the most fun person you've ever met. I mean, and I hear this from all the moms. We just have kids that were funny and full of life, and um, you know, that was one thing after she passed. If she could talk to me from heaven, I know she would say, don't wallow, don't feel sad. You know, I'm doing great. So just live your life as best you can. And my sons have her sense of humor. So we watch Christmas Vacation, her favorite Christmas movie. We always laugh about her. She could do all the voices, you know, and we just try to remember her and her sense of humor and fun, and we've done different things through the years, but that's the main thing.
So, what is your guys' favorite memory of with from Christmas with them?
With Tyler, it was probably when he was younger. I was a single mom for until he was 14, and my kids are 10 years apart. And this was Gage's first Christmas, so he was like 6 months old, and Tyler was about to be 12, and we never had cable, and he had asked Santa Claus for cable. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Because, like, you know, I didn't want him to have it before Christmas. And so I had like Santa write a letter how he was getting cable, but it wouldn't be until this day when it would come on. So it was like in an envelope, whatever. And we always wore like Santa Claus hats and stuff when we open up presents. And I have this picture of him, like when he opened up that and found out he was getting cable, he was like, yeah. I still have the pictures of my favorite pictures. I mean, the kid was so stoked for cable. It was so funny. He was a hoot, and he definitely was our jokester and always wanted to make everybody laugh. And he was the life of, you couldn't be mad at him, but so yeah.
I love that, like cable. Like, who
Cable.
would have thought? That's awesome. What about Lacey?
I don't have any one particular thing, but when she was the leader of the pack because she had two younger brothers, and she would always get up like in the middle of the night when they were little kids, and she'd lead them all downstairs or wherever the Christmas tree was, and she would one I know a couple times they would open the presents while we're asleep, to try to wrap them back up, and then sit there in front of the tree like they hadn't done that happened several times. And she loved stockings up until until she was 29, her last Christmas. The stocking was like she was 4. You had to have a stocking full of gifts for her. And so I've never been able to hang my stocking since she's passed, because that was her favorite, the little stocking gifts. And she was just ornery, and could never wait till Christmas morning. She always pulled some kind of trick to find out what she got under the tree. So, little criminal, really.
That's awesome. Well, I hope you guys can continue to share those memories with others. And what a gift that is to lean on those. And I love, like, that's one of my favorite things is hearing the stories, the funny stories. At Halloween, we had people posting pictures of their loved ones' favorite Halloween costumes and all of that. So it was lots of fun. So before we wrap up, I want to give you guys an opportunity, because a lot of our listeners on here might still have someone in active addiction or in recovery. And so, what would you share with them if they were listening? What advice would you share?
Don't give up hope. Continue to lean into the Lord. And I would also get involved in a support group. I really highly encourage that, because it can be so isolating, and you can feel like you're so alone in it, and like no one else is going through it or no one else understands. But when you get like the Finding Hope group, you realize like you're not the only one, and people can come alongside each other. And I think that's so important to have, not just that support, but also by like-minded people who believe in Jesus and God and can just encourage you and be praying alongside of you with that. And just continue to love your loved one, without enabling, but just to let them know how much you love them.
So true. That's really my one thing when I talk to parents is, you see so much of the bad stuff in addiction. They'll steal from you, they'll lie to you, they'll cover up everything they're doing, and they're heavy in shame all the time. They don't want to be addicts. And when you're living through that chaos, you just forget who your child is and was. And it's hard to see them, at the 12, 13-year-old age, when they were just pure and fun and delightful. And so as soon as Lacey passed, she became in my mind like the 12-year-old girl. I didn't see the chaos of the addiction and the messiness of it, and trying to work through helping her and struggling. So I tell parents, love them completely, 100%, hug them, tell them how special they are to you. Even if they're high, take them by the shoulders, give them that big long hug, and just say, I really cherish you, because that's what you're going to want to do if you don't have that chance. Don't wallow in the actions of addiction. Just appreciate who they are and will be if they become 100% what we hope they will, and that's sober. So just appreciate them.
That's so good. And Rhonda, before you guys know, I always in my podcast with a challenge, but before I do that, I want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit more about what you're doing and what you have done over these last 9 years, and what God is calling you to do with purpose from Be in Agreement with Me.
He just keeps pressing me to do things that are uncomfortable. I wrote a journal really through my phone, just talking to Lacey the first couple years, and it was just interaction with her back and forth. And so that became an interactive journal that I wrote. And now I want to do one for God Winks, and that's just going to let people share how God works through your loss, and those little God winks that we get, which are just special messages from your loved one and God, and you feel like it came right from heaven. So I'm working on that, and then improving our Finding Hope groups and trying to be a better leader. It's all learning. It's all just showing up. And most of the time I don't want to do it. I just really don't. But I know God wants me to do it. So I show up. And it's amazing how he'll fill in the blanks. And this coming year, I want to start a podcast, Hidden Treasures in Loss, I think is what it'll be. It's going to develop, but I want to just talk to people that are feeling that heavy loss and devastation, and how they're coping with it, and how God is showing them, each day to move forward. And I hope to be a good podcast person.
Well, I'm so excited. And, I know that journal we'll link all of your journal and stuff in the show notes too, if someone's listening wants to get that. And so it is, I know people love getting those journals, writing down every memory of their loved ones. I keep a couple in my office so that I can always mail them out or do what I need to do. So thank you. And I look forward to sharing more about your podcast and hearing your podcast come 2024, and maybe having you back on here again to share more about that. But like I said, I always like to end my podcast with a challenge. And today I wrote down 4 different challenges just from you beautiful ladies sharing your hearts today. And the first one is gratitude. To focus on gratitude this Christmas season. I've talked a lot at my Finding Hope groups. I was on a Zoom meeting last night, Finding Hope Zoom, and just talking about being still in God's presence and looking for that gratitude. What are we grateful for today? What is that blessing right in front of us that we might miss when we're not focused on that? But also, when you're in the middle of that, is to, Rhonda said, hold her. And Tara talked about curling up and feeling God's comfort. So allowing him to comfort you through that. And Tara also mentioned to allow yourself to work through those feelings. It's okay to have those feelings and to work through it. I love what you said, Tara, about like when you have those feelings, that's when you pick up the pictures. You go back through those. And so I loved hearing that. And then finally, my last challenge is to love, if you still have someone in active addiction, is to love them and tell them that you're proud of them. Tell them that you care about them. Making sure you are always sharing that with them. So thank you guys so much for joining me this week. You can learn more about Finding Hope at FindingHope.Today and Hope After Loss at HopeAfterLoss.Today. But before you go, I would love for you to give us a 5-star review, share this on social media, and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss our next hope-filled episode. And don't forget to spread hope in 2024 and give to our end of the year campaign. Thanks again for joining me, Amy LaRue, and our special guests, Miss Rhonda Kemp and Tara Winter, in this episode of Finding Hope. And remember, you are not alone. It's not your fault. And there is hope.